allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Will the treasurer call the roll? Do the roll call. Mr. Cashin. Here. Mrs. Lewis.
Here.
Mr. Trapper.
Here.
Mr. Trainer is absent at this point. And Mr. Wright. Here. Thank you. All right, first item on the agenda this evening is the approval of this evening's agenda. Mr. Griffin, any changes to that agenda?
Yes, we have some ads. First of all, on page 9, under number 1 there, Sarah Young, resignation bus driver. That should also read bus driver and cashier. On page 10, those ads, those changes, those ads there is listed 9 through 12. And then on page 11, those ads is listed there 7 through 9. And then on page 12, ad there number 6 on the top, and then number 2 on the bottom for field trips.
What's being added?
On page 12, the number 6 on the top part are professional meetings, and number 2 under field trips. And then on page 14, number 3, 4, and 5 there on the bottom. And that is it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Cashin. Yes. Mrs. Lewis.
Yes.
Mr. Trapper.
Yes.
And Mr. Wright now? Yes. All right, next thing on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the August 17th, 2021 regular board meeting. Draft copies were sent out after that meeting, and there have not been any changes since.
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Trapper?
Yes.
And Mr. Wright? Yes. Thank you. All right, we do have a recognition, I think, this evening. Mike, you wanted to make that recognition? I think it's from a few months back for the softball tournament, the soccer tournament that we hosted.
Do we have the people that help with that here tonight? Are they able to make it? Anybody from the soccer tournament this summer? Okay. I just want to thank them for their efforts. The tournament raised over $15,000 for the soccer program. Just a lot of time and effort. It was huge weekend events, and a lot of manpower went into that, a lot of volunteer time. So we're just grateful for all those people that put time and effort into that big event for us. So thank you to them.
It's kind of a weather weekend, kind of like we're not outside right now. It's just to raise that kind of money and benefit of the program is pretty cool. Imagine if it would have been a beautiful weekend, how much more. I want to remark again about what I saw that weekend, just in activity in the downtown area, for the area businesses, for people going to lunch. Those kinds of things really generate a lot of activity for the community. Not only is it good for the soccer program, but it's always good for the entire community to have that many people from outside our area come in and experience Genoa. And we can't do too much of those kinds of things. So thank you very much to those people. Jeff, did you want to say anything about that? I know that you had a
I just,
particular heart for it.
I think the exciting thing about it is we raised, what was the total money we raised?
Just over 15,000.
And it doesn't come from Genoa, it doesn't come from Genoa boosters, it doesn't come from businesses here. It is from teams and people traveling to Genoa to play in soccer. And all that money is coming from outside. It also had a huge benefit to the downtown businesses. So Subway, Marco's, Ray's, all those places were absolutely packed from the influx of folks. And that's a really positive, because those are the folks we call when we do the gala and the musical and those events to ask, will you buy an advertisement, will you do those things? So when we can do things that bring people from outside into the community to do business here, it's just a win-win for us. So just kudos. I love the creativity, and I love the fact that it's not asking the same people to donate, and it's not coming from our community. It's great. It's absolutely great.
Yeah, we need to do more of it for sure. And there's, as creative as that is, we can do it across the board in a lot of areas, and we should. If for no other reason than Jeff said, to help pay those patrons that we have in the district, those business owners, it's a nice thank you. We're putting money back in their pockets that they turn around and share with the school. So great job, everyone, all the way around. We will have our input from our administration and staff. Mike, you got the high school report, everything off to a good start?
Yes, things are going well. We're, of course, we're in homecoming week here this week. We did have to postpone tomorrow night's events just because of the weather that's coming. We don't always believe the weather forecast when they say 100%. We know we're pretty sure that we're going to get some of that. So we're looking at several inches of rain here between tonight and tomorrow. So anyway, we postponed the football, the powder puff, and the stud volleyball, and bonfire. So that'll schedule for next Wednesday. But other than that, things are going well. Kids are taking care of business, and staff's doing a great job as usual.
All right, good deal. Kevin, middle school report?
Yes, thank you. For the middle school, we feel like we had a really good preseason starting up in August. We had a few days to get ready with our teachers and staff, and I'd like to thank some people personally, Christine Danoff, Cody McPherson, Tom Baker for their work. They did a lot of prep work and getting not only those things ready, but Tom and Christine getting our students ready with their Chromebooks and distribution and fixing and things like that, and helping our teachers with technology issues. So thank them for that. Also, our teachers doing a really good job meeting the needs of our students. Got off to a pretty good 4 weeks. It's a little rough now with some pandemic issues, but we'll get through it. We'll just keep chipping away. And kudos to our bus drivers. It's thin out there just like any other district. And Dave Kluge's been doing a great job rearranging routes, splitting routes, combining routes. We've been doing all kinds of creative things just to get by and get our students here safely, home and here. So it's been difficult, but we're pulling it off, and we'll just keep trying. It's not easy. And also, kudos to our secretary, Ms. Melissa Braddock. This is a new thing for her. She just started last November, so this is the first beginning of the school year. And she's had a lot thrown at her, and she's doing a fantastic job and helping our students and our staff. So, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Brenda. Our elementary report.
Thank you. Amy and I are happy to be back in the building, and we seem to be making a good team. We're very happy to be back. The students and the staff are doing a tremendous job. It's nice to get to know some of the students I knew from back in kindergarten that are now third graders, fourth and fifth. Some are getting used to the new ones. So it's good to be back in the building. Yes, our teachers are working extremely hard. Kevin mentioned busing. I get a call usually daily from Dave. He'll say, bus 17 is bus 11 tonight, or this. Dave, okay. But we've been working it out, I think doing very well with being short drivers and trying to get the right kids on the right bus. We always say, we'll get them home. They may not always be on the right bus, but we'll get them home. But it's been a good year so far. And the teachers have been doing a great job just keeping everything in tow when we get a glance for Google Classes. And yes, I go with Kevin. Technology, Christine, I know Christine's here tonight, and Tom, they've been doing a great job keeping everything up to date. Our Chromebooks, getting them ready to send home, just being in the building, helping teachers. So thank you. We are delighted to have a new third grade teacher starting next Monday. Thank you to Mr. Ferguson and the board for listening to our concerns. Large class sizes have been an issue, so we've been able to start our 2 new teachers next Monday. So thank you, thank you, thank you. PTO met earlier this month. We are recruiting people, so if you're out here and you have an elementary parent, please come to our PTO meeting. So we're trying, we have a president and a vice president. We need officers. We've had more people last meeting, and we're setting up some new meetings each month. They are also working on projects for our building and our playground. So they have some really great ideas. Last week we had a 5th grade field trip. Yay! First one in a long time to Ottawa County Conservation Day, and they thoroughly enjoyed it. I think our students had a great day. We've been doing some STAR testing in our building, K through 5. It will be done this Friday. So we're looking at data for our reading intervention groups and our RIP plans. So Cody's been doing a great job. Thank you, Cody, coming over, helping us learn some new things and maybe find out where some files are under which Google Drive. But he's been very instrumental in helping our teachers with the STAR testing. Elementary pictures will be next Tuesday. We'll be sending the class dojo home. And we have a book fair coming up October 11th to the 15th. And PTO will provide books for our teachers, free books. And we're also setting up a coffee clutch for the week of October 11th for some senior citizens to come in. PTO is sponsoring coffee and donuts. So it'll be just a small group. We'll invite some of the board members to come and talk to our senior citizens. So thank you. It's been a great start to a year. We look forward. Every day is a new adventure. I tell my teachers, we never know what's going to happen each day. How many teachers are going to be there? We're going to have to be short staffed. It is what it is. We've learned to be flexible. We've learned to put a smile on our face and deal with whatever comes our way. So, thank you.
Hey, Brenda.
Yeah.
Before you get away, several things you talked about. You mentioned PTO here, PTO there, PTO development. So once again, we highlight the necessity of our PTO, right?
Right.
And how critical it is to the operation of the school. So I'm thankful that we're having such a good effort on your part and others to put the structure back in place. So I want to talk a little bit about this. What's that structure look like in terms of recruiting, room captains or however that looks like?
At
just
open
to
house.
begin to fill the numbers for the PTO.
At open house this year, each classroom teacher had a list where they wanted parents to sign up. We wanted a designated chairperson for PTO person to come either to the PTO meetings or bring somebody else in their place. We only have a few, once a month. So we had probably, I think, 10 to 12 at our last PTO meeting. Better than we had before. We have a president and a vice president. So we're encouraging them. Our next PTO meeting will have the reading teachers talking about reading and the importance, and we're giving away free books. We received a grant a couple years ago, and we have lots of books, and we want them to be in the hands of parents and students. So the PTO has been very positive and really want to bring the parents back because they can't do it all.
What nights are those?
Tuesday nights.
Tuesday nights, so
First Tuesday of every month. We have a 6:30 administrative, like a team meeting, and then 7 o'clock in our school cafeteria. So yeah, anybody that's not busy, come on out.
Yeah, please, everyone here and everyone listening online, it's that important that we engage this and that we get people participating and being present and learning and growing together and sharing ideas to help the kids get up to speed in the areas of reading and everything that we do. So please invite your friends, please invite your neighbors to go to the PTO meetings and be a part. It's critically important, critically important.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brenda. All right, Cody, Mr. McPherson, do you have anything to share with us? I'm sure you do.
I'll make it quick.
All right.
Okay, thank you. That's good like that. Thank you, everyone. We just a quick update of things that's going on from the curriculum side. Last Friday, we had a professional learning day. I thought it went quite well. I don't want to steal any of Christine's thunder. You're going to come up here and speak in a little bit. Are you sure? Okay, she is fantastic, who should also play the lottery more often. She won a guest speaker for us. His name is John Carrico. He is an author and a guest speaker. He's written a couple books, and we also have a course that our teachers can provide on edu protocols. And I love it when we can provide things for our teachers that they can take away as soon as they're done and apply it immediately. And that was just a fantastic session. All the sessions that we had last Friday were following our core values, and that was the goal. And something that's been harping, that we're going to harp as long as we're here, is understanding the why of why we do what we do. And so our teachers are probably getting a little tired of me saying the same thing over and over again, but we're going to row the boat and we're going to continue to follow our core values. When you understand your why, you understand the purpose, and you can move forward from there. So I'm just really proud of the way our teachers have responded with some new challenges this year. A great example this week, our high school ELA, geometry, and Algebra 1 educators are doing benchmark testing for their students. What we're going to utilize that testing, that data for, is to move forward with our after-school extended learning, which will be coming up here soon as well. So there's always a purpose in everything we do, and I want to make sure they understand that purpose so that they understand their why. Things that we're going to look forward to in October, we have our PISA opportunity for some scholarship money from our students. That'll be coming up here in October. That's the 13th, and then our third grade guarantee is coming up in October as well. Our RIMP data indicates exactly what you guys provided for our elementary staff. Our highest needs K through 3, our incoming kindergarten group. I think that speaks volumes of the gap that was created by preschools throughout the nation, not being able to provide that early education opportunity for our students. And then we just have a very high need in third grade. 36% of our students are identified as needing a RIMP and needing interventions for that third grade guarantee. So again, I'm going to kind of duplicate what Brenda said. Thank you. It is definitely needed, and our students needed it. So thank you.
What did you say for PSAT?
PSATs, we have 7 students who identified to Ms. Mushnik that they wanted to take it. That is October 13th. Yep, and so we'll be getting going on that. The 6th, the data should be coming in for us to get those kids signed up. The 13th will be when they'll be able to take it. So I don't think that we did do that last year, but it has been something we've done here before. So, yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Holly, do you have anything for us?
Machine walk first.
Huh?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, Lawrence, for a week off.
We're all set.
You good?
Nothing today, yeah.
All right. Mr. DeClute, you got anything to share about the buses or anything like that?
No, just if you don't
order.
let you drive.
Hiring drivers.
Need driver, need driver. Well, okay, with that, we'll conclude our administrative staff comments, and then we'll open it up to our public comment section. Just again ask that we limit the comments to 2 or 3 minutes, making your points. We're not going to go have a bunch of back and forth between competing ideas. We're just going to kind of shut that down for the good of the order and everybody involved. Please state your name and feel encouraged. We want to hear from you. We want to hear your points. We want to hear what you have to say, if indeed there are public comments. So anybody wishing to join in the public comment section of the board meeting, we just ask you to step down the aisles to the microphones. Again, state your name, and the floor will be yours for a couple of minutes, and then we'll move on to the next person. So we'll open it up now for comments from the public. All right, we have
Good evening, everybody. Ben Whitmer.
Hi, Ben.
So, I guess I'm going to start with sorry, the last time I was here, I don't envy your guys' job and making the choices that you guys have to make, the difficult, lots of voices telling you different things, that you guys got to make a decision. So I went to that out of the way up front. Interesting that the paper that was passed out, right, about kind of like what you guys want as an engagement model from the public. I don't want to let you know that I did that yet. So yesterday my son got quarantined along with a whole bunch of other folks. I talked to the middle school principal, I talked to Mr. Ferguson, the superintendent, and so I want to bring some concerns to you guys. And the primary concern that I want to walk away from, or hopefully you guys can agree with this, is that while there's a lot of information coming out, I think, from the health departments, as far as like, is it a guideline, is it a mandate, right? It's pretty clear, and I've got some information and some recording or whatever that I'm happy to share, but it's pretty clear that it's your job, it's the school board's decision as far as whether or not you remove children from the classroom. It's not the health department, it's not the governor anymore, right? Like we're talking, last year, different than this year. This year, right, there's no state mandate. The health department provides recommendations, they provide guidance, but as the school board and then as the administration, you are responsible for those decisions. And I just want to make sure as a citizen, as a voter, as a parent, that we're clear that you guys are owning those decisions, that you're not hiding behind the health department saying that, my kid has to go home because of the other 166 kids that are currently excluded from school, not because they're sick, but because they happen to sit next to someone that tested positive, right? That's your decision as a school board. You guys are deciding that. And so, again, just I think, when I had the conversation with Mr. Ferguson yesterday, that was a bit of a revelation to him, right? I think his understanding was that the guidance coming from the health department was more than guidance, and that you guys had to follow that. I got a similar sentiment from the nurse when I talked to the nurse yesterday, right? Like, so I just would like kind of truth to reign, and let's clear the air on who's actually responsible for the choices. Because then if you're responsible for the choices, then we can actually balance some things. And as I talked to Mr. Ferguson yesterday, right? Like, the health department's role is around health. They're not responsible to care about education of children, right? Lawyers' responsibility is around liability for you guys. They're not responsible for education of children, and that is your primary objective. And so while I get that you've got these voices and this recommendations and data coming in, I really think you guys need to balance that with what's the cost to educating children if we take and follow these recommendations and guidelines, right? And that, I think, is where there's a huge gap. Because, and I tried to call and get some data today, I didn't get through, but we've got 167 kids currently excluded from school, not because they're sick, right? And if the ratios are representative, right, because you've got 12 students that are currently sick and 167 that are not, that are excluded from school. And if that ratio is representative, you're talking potentially over 300 kids in the school year that you've excluded from school, not because they're sick. So let's just say that that's the number. I want to know, and I think you guys, if I was sitting in your chairs, you should want to know, if any one of those 300 kids, in the time that they were excluded from school, test positive. And if they did, what's the percentage, right? Like, what's the value of what we're doing? And what's the negative impact of what we're doing excluding the children from school? On top of that, the other concern that I brought up was we found out day 5 from exposure, right? So this is where I'm saying, like, I think there needs to be some measured thought into how we do this, because if the in theory, it makes sense, right? Like, if we can get the kid out from day 1 to day 5, because maybe that's when they're most communicable after exposure, right? But if practically speaking, and again, I know that it's not, that's not the case every time, but again, this is the data I want to know. What's our average time from exposure to quarantine? Because if it's day 4 or 5, by the time we practically get information from the health department, we find out the kid tested positive, we can notify and send the kid home, then again, we've diminished the value of what that quarantine was supposed to be able to give us, but now we're still keeping that kid out of school for 6 days or 5 days or the rest of the quarantine period for limited value, and we're not considering the detriment to the educational value. So I can stop. I'm happy to talk to you guys afterwards and give you the data that I found right from the Ohio House Health Committee on August 24th. A guy named Joe Mazzola, who's the Franklin County Health Commissioner, is also the president of the Association of Ohio Health Departments. So he's the president of the association over all of the health departments in Ohio. And it was clear from his testimony that they want to pretend like they've got authority to tell you what to do, but when really pressed to say, well, wait a minute, this really is actually the school districts that decide. It's not you. In kind of a sheepish way, it was, yeah, it's the school districts. So I'm just saying, like, own your authority. I'm not saying you have to come to a decision that I would make, right? But I want to make sure everyone knows who's accountable for the decision, and so that they can hold people accountable to the decision, and we're not handcuffed by the health department, which was different than last year, right? Last year, my redress was against the governor and the health departments. This year, it's against you guys. You guys are accountable for those decisions.
Against is a little harsh, but sure, I guess.
My redress
I
is
guess. If I can't bring some humor to this last 2 years, I'm in trouble. So.
I understand that, but for me, in this situation where I'm at right now, with 166 other parents that have their kids home, it's not funny, frankly. And I get it.
I hope you know, I don't think it's funny to keep 166 kids out. And I appreciate your information, and there is clarity to be had there. The understanding that we had is they did have the authority, and the more we've dug into it, it is murky. Not to you.
Yes, it's not murky. It's not murky. It's not murky to the health department. It's not, like, when they're pressed, it's not murky to them, right? I get like the documents they're putting out to you, even what you guys have on your website, which I'm assuming is coming from them, makes it appear like they want to say like they've got authority. But they don't, and when they're pressed in a position where they can be held accountable for what they actually say, as opposed to some pamphlet that they send out online, they tell the truth. And the truth is, they don't have the authority to tell you what to do, right? They have the authority, and like SB 22 is really important in this, right? Because SB 22 limited the health department's authority to quarantine people, actually quarantine people only if they were diagnosed, medically diagnosed with the disease. Which is why they can't diagnose, which is why Joe Mazzola actually uses the word school districts exclude children. They're excluded from school. They're not quarantined, because quarantine is a legal term that the health department has to meet criteria to enact, right? Which is why, like, my kid is not quarantined in the house to go wherever he wants, legally. He just can't come to school, and that's your choice.
Thank you.
Well done, thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one, we will move on to our treasurer reports, unless there's more comments or anything from any of our board members.
I'd just like to speak to it. It concerns me greatly to have 166 children out of the school district. And as far as let's assume, I'll take your assumption, not your assumption, your belief that it is our authority. Where I struggle is we've removed social distancing, we've removed masks, we have a very low, especially in the middle and high school, very low percentage of vaccinated students. The only thing we're doing at this point is the quarantine. That would be the only thing that we're doing is the quarantine to stop an outbreak or large mitigation of it in the school system. I've got 3 kids in the school system, and it really concerns me for them to be quarantined as much as it does you. But I balance that. If what you're saying is true, I balance that my decision on what are we doing to address the fact that this still exists and it is spreading within children. This variant spreads more rapidly with children than the last variant. I think the challenge for me is last year we probably went too far. With hindsight, I probably would, in that case, I would have made the decisions I made last year. As a school board member, I'd have voted the way I voted based on what I knew. Knowing what I know this year, if this was the same version as last year, I would make different decisions. And I have made different decisions. I didn't vote for a mask mandate. But that would be my balance. And I don't really have a decision or know what to do with what we shared, if that is accurate. And we make that full decision. But I would say it would be difficult for me personally, not the board, for me personally, to just remove all mitigation efforts of COVID. So that would just be my personal opinion.
Can I have a follow-up question?
Sure.
Okay. So, and as I talked to Mr. Ferguson, personally what I would like, right, would be to remove the mitigation, whatever, right, remove quarantine. But I'm not even saying that we have to go that far. I'm saying, and I guess why the question that I started with is so important, right, to your point. Do you even know, you're saying it's the only mitigation you guys are doing, do you even know if it's effective, right? Meaning that to me it would be effective if 50%, 20%, 30% of the kids that you quarantine actually test positive. That means that by you taking them out of school, you prevented further spread. If you can't say that, if you don't have that data, you have no idea whether you're effective or not, the mitigation tactic that you're taking.
Well, I think about that often, and I'll just end with this, is the difficulty with that is I've known multiple families who've had COVID within their own household and not tested their own children. So, if I had COVID, we did have 2 of our 5 children got COVID. All the remaining 5 members in the household all got tested. We got tested that day. So that's if I was confident that was occurring, I could see where
I'm just saying that if you don't know any of the data at all, like let's say it's 2%, and then you could potentially make that argument to say, well, we think it's higher, but we don't. You know what I mean? And I guess the other thing that I feel like the thing that I would close with and say when I talk about not removing everything, if you said we're concerned about children that, like, obviously you shouldn't be concerned about a kid that's exposed that never gets sick. And I'm not talking about testing positive, but like if they didn't get it all, right? We're sacrificing them for the risk potentially, right?
Yeah, and I don't take the sacrifice.
No.
It's a sacrifice. I don't think
We're
it might
sacrificing
be.
them for the risk. And so I guess what I'm saying is, like, we could look at other things like, and again, I'm not necessarily super in favor of all these things, but they're better than quarantine, like doing temperature checks for kids that are exposed, right? So that, so you can make sure that if they present any symptoms, then they have to go home and they have to quarantine, right? That it's not the guidelines, one size fits all.
It's difficult. I will tell you, as a board member, it's very, very difficult to sit here and ignore guidelines from health departments, and we're already doing that.
My challenge to you
right, just 1 second. We're already doing that. We're already ignoring multiple guidelines from the health department today.
You're talking about masks in particular?
Mask, social distancing, gathering in large groups, you name it. We're ignoring multiple recommendations from the state health department, the county health department, the governor. We're ignoring basically all of them. The only one we're not ignoring is the quarantine process when people are exposed to COVID-19. That's the only one we're not doing. And it's just the reality of it. And I know it's I know what you want, and I know there's probably a majority of people in this district that want what you want, but sitting in these seats, it is extremely difficult to hear the governor and the heads of the children's hospitals in the state ask us to do something and to ignore that. It is extremely difficult for me to do that, to stomach that. And if you don't think I sit up at night worrying about one of our children going to the ICU or their parents, I mean, that is a grave concern on the shoulders of every single person here. I understand the sacrifice. My children have had to go through that quarantine sacrifice. I get it. And I don't, whatever our vote or our answer is, there'll be a different set of parents at that microphone telling us that.
And that's where I started with.
It is weight,
But
it is
that's what
weight, and it clearly all is falling on school boards across the state of Ohio, which is insane. Entrepreneur, phone salesman, mortgage broker, processes meat, veteran. That's our background, and we're making life and death decisions, health decisions for 1,300 students and plus staff.
Well, and that's what I would
is-
say your primary objective should be child education.
It is our primary objective. It is.
Right? That's why I'm saying to you that all these other people that are speaking into it have their own primary objectives.
But they've given us healthcare as well, which we should not own, but we do own. You have to understand that our primary
I
objective is
disagree with you.
education, but they put the.
They're giving you healthcare guidelines, right? And you guys need to weigh that in the balance of your primary role, which is educating kids and the impact of that. And I'm not saying that's an easy job. That's where I started. I don't say that's.
I appreciate your candor and tone. Thank you. I really do appreciate that.
Hi, my name is Sarah Schiller, and I just have a little follow-up with that. I agree wholeheartedly. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I am concerned with all the kids being out, and my question to you, I think it is hard. You don't have the expertise. I don't have the expertise. But have you done the research? Have you looked at the studies that are coming out that are showing that asymptomatic transmission is very low, and that are showing that children are not affected by COVID-19 nearly as much as like the elderly are. Like children have very high recovery rates. It's something like 99.98% or something like that. And so then, I guess, is there somebody who can be doing research? Is there somebody that can be designated to say, hey, like there are a lot of studies out. Like I've been like reading and listening to, you know, things that are coming across, not as much in the mainstream media news because I think a lot of that is suppressed. But the studies are out there. They're doing actual, like, you know, double-blind or scientific studies. You know, I'm not a big expert in all that. But I know that the studies are out there, and I'm wondering, is there somebody on the school board or somebody that the school board could designate to actually look at the research that would tell us if we're making the best decisions for our kids? You know, are we weighing risk versus benefit? Are the risks of losing the education value during all these quarantines, are those risks much higher than the health risk to the children that are very resilient and are not getting so sick, they're not ending up in the ICU like the elderly are, like those rates are totally different. And I guess that's my challenge is where could we go? Is there somebody who could put a more scientific spin on it, I guess?
Well, so let me address that. We have weekly meetings with the Ottawa County Health Department, and I guess where we stand, we're trusting them, you know, and they've been probably, I guess, more real with us in the past year and have been more practical in some of our approaches with things because they also understand that we want kids in school. So I have a certain trust in them that they're staying on top of this, and we got questions for them about these things every single week because we want our kids back in school. as much as possible, and they get that. And so we push them, and we push them each week. You know, what else can we do? The problem with assigning someone specifically is that in spite of whatever they're reading, they're not an expert. They can take all that, and we have people that come up and talk to us, and people call, and they cherry pick whatever information suits their side of the coin. And I understand that. So, but at the end of the day, we're still not the experts. And we have to have some reliance on them. You know, we rely on experts for everything else in our life. But this seems to be the time when, because of politics, we don't want to rely on that. We find flaws in all that. And there's still data out there. Part of what we're trying to find out is we are trying to find out how many, you know, what is that, how many kids are ending up positive that are in quarantine. That's part of the broader picture we're trying to find out, and they are, as a state, they are looking at that data. I mean, that's a lot of data, though, to sift through. You know, and I'll just, you know, Mr. Woodward, you brought that up yesterday. We have two cases, just two today, that were part of kids who were quarantined. And that's just today. I don't know about the rest of the data, but that was brought to my attention today. Just because we are trying to find links, you know, where there may be classroom spread or spread from a team. So we have a couple of those today. Hopefully that's the end of it, but that's what we're concerned about. So as much as people may disagree, our choice, because of who we are, what our education is, we have to rely on the experts. And we can't play politics.
And I don't want to play politics either, like, that's all, I'm just wondering, are they cherry picking data? Are they looking at all the data? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that whatsoever.
I really would encourage people to go to the Ottawa County Health Department, their board. I would encourage that, to ask those questions. We asked those, I personally reached out to them multiple times over the last year. And, you know, this week's, you asked if we do research. This week's research that I did was on recurrence of natural immunity. So I've been doing a lot of research on students who have had COVID or adults who've had COVID. And this, you know, Ron and I have had 4 conversations about it this week, and I've been doing research on that. So I guarantee you everybody on this board is doing research on a pretty regular basis. This is this sucks the oxygen out of every room we go into. And this isn't what we're supposed to be doing. I didn't sign up to be a health clerk. It's not what I'm here to do. And I think it was an unintended consequence by the state legislature to dump this all on us, but that's really been the result of the legislation that's been passed. It's brought it all on school boards.
That's what probably where Jeff and I disagree, because I think they did it absolutely exactly the way they wanted to.
Yeah, well,
They intentionally did not want the responsibility, so they, you know, while you know, putting all kinds of pressure and.
I don't think they meant to fill our room with people coming. But yeah, it was intent to bring it to us. You're right.
Yeah. So, you know, it's a tough deal to separate your own personal feelings from what's in the best interest of the community. Okay, I have very strong opinions, and I thank everybody for their opinion about it. We talk to everybody that we know who might have some perspectives, some knowledge, what feels right, what do I believe about it, and then I have to weigh that against, you know, this big albatross in the room that Mr. Whitmer talks about, which is we got to educate these kids. And that really weighs a lot. That's a lot of weight for me. Everybody's going to weigh that a little different versus the health dangers of COVID. You know, like you know, all the ancillary ways that COVID can impact a family's life, a community's life. But there's still this really important piece. So we got to educate these kids. And as I share and as I speak with Lauren about, you know, what we're trying to do to meet the needs of so many kids who've fallen behind already early in the earliest stages of their education as a result of this pandemic is real. We might not, if we aren't really good at the intervention and getting them back, bringing them, remediation, get them back up to speed, we'll see the ramifications of this down the road. And that's serious for their futures, for the future of the community and everything. So it's a big deal. It's a tough thing to weigh, and we will continue to talk about it. And we'll continue to monitor it, take input from the health department, from Mr. Ferguson's interactions with all the other superintendents and that group. They're trying to do right. But we are, we have to we ultimately, you're right, we are going to be responsible for what happens in Genoa. I kind of like that, but it's not an easy thing. And it's not as easy and just right. You can't just be careless. Throwing caution to the wind and being careless is really dumb. And so you have to be responsible. We have to look at the vaccinations, the latest data on the vaccinations. We got vaccination fear everywhere, but some people are perfectly comfortable. We have to look at that data as well. So appreciate the thoughts and continue to accept the input. Please give us more input. We want it. And we'll make decisions as we go.
But I guess, okay, I have a question though. Why are we waiting until day 5? I mean, I guess I see Mr. Woodward's point, like, it's day 5. Where's the
Department's closed, everybody.
That's what
We're not waiting. We have to work off of the information we have. And if a kid is home sick for a couple of days, parents decide to test them, or if they're in school for a couple of days and they're not feeling well, parent decides to test them. We don't get that, and it takes 2 days to get that information back. We're not going to get it in real time. And yes, that is problematic, and the quarantines go back to that last exposure. But there's just too many variables to say, why don't we have it here? That's why, because we don't have that immediate feedback from parents in situations that they're there. And we have parents that aren't even reporting when their kids are sick. So.
My name's Dawn Wall. Actually, you just hit on 2 of my points. One, you did, in 5 days, they've already exposed pretty much everybody in the school. And 2 is, there's tons of kids whose parents aren't even doing it. But my biggest thing is that these kids that are being removed, and they, like he said, excluded from school, do you think they're staying home? No, them same kids are going, and you're nodding, going to that playground, hanging around with everybody in their class. They're going to their friend's house playing video games. The only thing they're not doing is coming to school. And I get it. You guys have the worst, crappiest job in the world right now. And his statement is 1,000% true. School boards across Ohio are finally admitting these are guidelines. The health department don't. Everything on your guys' lap. Okay? It is all your decisions. But I'm like, the biggest thing is like these kids, if I could understand if they were actually staying home. But I know for a fact, these kids are not staying home because my son has played basketball with them. So they're not. And it just seems crazy that the only thing these kids are being taken away from is school because, Johnny's kept home from school and goes and plays basketball today with Mark. Mark's going to school tomorrow. So all you've done is take Johnny's education away. You haven't stopped the spread of anything if it's going to spread. You've stopped nothing. And I know that sounds terrible to say, but it's the most realistic thing. And as a parent, I'm looking realistically. I would love to think that just keeping Johnny home from school is going to protect my child. But it's not, because Johnny's playing with Mark and Mark's coming to school. Just like, my granddaughter was kept home from school. But my grandson, her brother, they sit at the dinner table. They wrestled in the living room. He had to go to school. She was stayed home, but the same child in the same family came to his school. And the logic and the science in that, any science teacher,
Anybody who's passed second grade science knows that makes 0 sense. So I really hope you guys, when you're doing this, I know your best interest may be thinking, and like they said, it may make you feel like you're protecting somebody, but is it really?
Thank you.
Hi, I came last month. My name's Chastity, I live on 9th Street in Genoa. And my son tonight, he wanted to come today. He volunteered to come with me, he wanted to hear this meeting. And he wanted me to say that he hopes to continue the no mask. Again, he does have ADHD, so he does not care to wear things on his face or, I don't know, just stop moving always. But beyond that, he brought up a good point. The mask, he doesn't think they work. I don't think they work. There's studies, they don't work. And he thinks leaving us with no mask can build our immune system to fight this disease, and maybe hopefully we won't be so afraid of it, or it won't spread so badly, or maybe we'll be immune to it, kind of like getting the common cold or the flu. So basically, he wanted to come up and talk, but he changed his mind, so here I am talking for him. But basically, we just hope that you guys make the best decision in your hearts possible and continue with the way things are going as far as no masks go. And I applaud you guys for being up here and making these hard decisions, because God knows I wouldn't be able to do it myself. And I'm grateful for all of you, so we appreciate you all regardless. And hopefully some of this insight can help with your guys' decision at the end of the meeting again. And I pray that this goes away, but we all know it's probably not going to anytime soon. So thank you for listening to us. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Okay, we'll move on. Thank you, everyone, for your input. We'll go to our treasurer, Mr. Nye, for our reports.
Okay, actual compared to budget for the month of August. Financially speaking, the first couple of months of the fiscal year have been relatively quiet. Looking at the revenue section, really there's not a lot happening. We're very, very close to the budget as we speak. The only thing that's really happened is preschool payments. We've had actually, this is uncommon, we actually had 6 payments for the full year occur for preschool. Usually you pay a month. We actually had 6 of them. So that's adjusting that other line a little bit, making it positive and favorable for the short term. But overall, as you can see, total revenue is just a little over 4,000 favorable compared to budget. So they're basically where we thought we'd be. Looking at expenditure section, once again, not a lot going on. A little bit favorable in salaries and wages. We actually had multiple staff. Their supplemental positions have not started on bi-weekly pay. That will occur here going forward, which will adjust that line item. And also in the other line item for expenditures, we had a slightly higher pay-for-it fees, which means basically that our community is utilizing the pay-for-it system to make payments for fees and or pay participates instead of writing checks or cash. But if you look at the expenditure section, a little over $43,000 to the good right now. Overall cash balance, $47,844, better than budget. Just a reminder, budget for this year is just under $360,000 in deficit spending. So we're currently trending.
Say that again, Bill, nice and loud.
Fiscal year 22 budget, as it was originally put together right in July, just under 360,000 in deficit spending.
Everybody's
Currently,
clear what deficit spending is?
You didn't have a balanced budget, that's what it means.
Pardon?
You didn't have a balanced budget, that's what it means.
Oh, we did have a balanced budget, but expenses are outstripping the funds.
so with that said, currently, we're a little bit ahead of budgets, trending at about 312,000 deficit spending for this year. Any questions, comments, concerns? Okay, moving forward to a couple of items for board consideration, for board approval consideration. These two items that I have, you've seen them before. The first one is the amended certificate of estimated resources. Basically what this shows, the spreadsheet notes all the revenue streams for each of our funds coming in for fiscal year 22. This includes the general fund, all the way down to all of our grant funding and everything in between. Basically, just an estimate. You will see this certainly at least a couple more times this fiscal year as I make adjustments when material items need adjusted, basically. What I do with this, this goes to, should it be board approved, once it's board approved, I do submit it to the county auditor for their filing to make sure that everything is on the up and up basically with our revenue streams. Any questions on the revenue aspect of the certificate or estimated resources? Like I said, it is an estimate. If some of the material would come to be, certainly will get another one of these to approve. Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Cashin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Excuse me, yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Ms. Rayner?
Yes.
All right, next item is just the expenditure side of things. This is the permanent appropriations. On this spreadsheet, if you look at the left column, it's just the certificate of estimated resources appropriated, what we have to actually spend in revenue. And the permanent appropriations on the right side is what's being allocated in order to cover all of our expenditures for fiscal year 22. This includes the general fund and every other fund that we do have included. Once again, what if this should be approved, this will go to the county auditor for her confirmation, keeping in her files for fiscal year 22. Any questions? Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Cashin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Rayner?
Yes.
I did have a third item on the agenda. But that item I'm going to table, and we're going to have further discussion on that before I would potentially bring it back to the board for their thoughts on approval. Other than that, that's all I have.
All right. Thank you, Bill. And do we have any committee reports? Any of our committees that met? Anything for anybody that, I know we're just getting started with the school year, but.
Nothing.
All right. Anybody else?
I can tell you that maintenance is meeting at the end of this month. And we will, I will basically, once I have a maintenance meeting, I usually bring that to finance If there's anything major, I can bring it to the board as a whole. But that's coming up here at the end of September.
All right. Mr. Ferguson.
Okay. Page 9. I need the board to approve the following resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
I'd like to thank Ms. Young for her time and dedication to the district for the last few years. Okay, on page 10,
Can you separate those out?
yes, then we'll go to number 1 first.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Abstain?
And Ms. Raynow?
Yes.
Need the board to approve then 2 through 12 and 1 on the bottom section.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
Just so you know, I forgot my glasses, so Chrissy's telling me when I can and cannot work, so I can't see any of this here today, so.
Page 11, need the board to approve the employment as listed there.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
On page 12, need the board to approve those professional meetings and field trips as listed there.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
Page 14, need the board to approve number 1 there as listed.
Motion to approve.
Second. Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
Number 2, need the board to approve that in lieu of transportation as listed there.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Cashin?
Just to be clear, we're required to pay for the end of the
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
The board to approve number 3 there, the final day, transportation routes for the 21-22 school year.
Okay, I'll send it over.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Traver?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Raynow?
Yes.
Number 4 there, under discussion and approval. I mentioned to some of you here that we have a memorandum of understanding between our the board and OPC. are, as we mentioned earlier, trying to find bus drivers. We have two that are leaving, retiring here. It's a challenge for everybody. No, there's not a call in among superintendents that I sit on or meeting that everybody's struggling with bus drivers. So what we are looking at modifying the language to allow for is those bus drivers to come in who have experience to be able to be paid on that pay scale. There's 5 steps for bus drivers to be paid on the pay scale per their experience. And their experience will be determined by state employer retirement system and the time that they have put in there. So they could be a sub in 3 different places and have a year and a half accumulated time. We will use SERS to determine where they could land on that. But, we're just in a situation where, we need bus drivers. And I think those of you that have kids that ride the bus know it's been a challenge today, last week, just because when we're short, it turns everything upside down on its head. And we just don't have the subs. We've added a couple tonight. Hopefully that's going to help with the process, but it's just a need.
Motion approved.
Second. Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Rayner?
Yes.
And number 5 there for discussion approval. Once again, we have great needs in our elementary amongst our special education population, but also just our the rest of our student body as well. Obviously, they've fallen behind, and to everybody's point tonight, especially in our 3rd grade, our special ed teachers are up to their eyeballs in cases and the minutes that have to be served. It's just a challenge. So we are looking at Lauren Schober, who resigned last year, but is available 2 days a week this year to help service our students, our student population there. So it's just a need that we can't ignore. We got to address it. So I need the board to consider approving that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Rayner?
Yes.
And that's all I have.
All right. Anything new for the good of the order from the board? Let's bring up. There's no executive session this evening. So with that, we will conclude our meeting and I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Cashin? Yes. Mrs. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. Travis?
Yes.
Mr. Trainer?
Yes.
And Mr. Rayner?
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Appreciate it very much.